there is a really strange moment that happens in almost every single client meeting that I have. We'll be sitting there, go through their finances, right? Income, savings, pensions, all that sort of stuff. And eventually they'll turn to me and ask me this question in some form. So how am I actually doing? And the truth is that most people asking that question genuinely have no idea. They'll know how much they earn, they'll know how much they spend if they're on the ball, and they'll know roughly how much money they've got in the bank. But they don't actually have a clear way of knowing whether they're actually building wealth and progressing or just funding a lifestyle for today. You see, most people, I think, have a basic misunderstanding of what it actually means to be wealthy. So today, I'm going to show you one simple ratio that tells you whether you are actually rich. And it's called the rich ratio. And once you understand it, you'll know in about 10 seconds whether you are truly wealthy or whether it's all just vanity metrics. The reality is that most people have no idea where they stand. But first, you need to understand why most people get this completely wrong. And it starts with something that you can picture right now. Two neighbors living on the same street. So let's say you've got Dave. Dave's got a 5-bedroom detached house worth 1.5 million. Brand new kitchen, landscaped garden, the works. Looks beautiful. Sarah lives next door with a modest 3-bedroom house worth 400,000. Now, at first glance, Dave looks wealthier, right? He's got all the shiny stuff, but here's the thing. Dave's entire net worth is locked inside the house. He's got a massive mortgage, sky-high council tax, and energy bills that make your eyes water. And every little time something breaks, a boiler or a roof, whatever, it's thousands. His house is basically just a beautiful, very expensive money pit. Plus, he can't pay for his groceries with the equity in his beautiful kitchen extension. Sarah, on the other hand, has been quietly putting her money into her ISAs and pensions for 15 years. She's been sitting, and she currently is sitting on a portfolio worth 800,000. Now that portfolio can pay her an income every single month without her lifting a finger. And this is where, hopefully, what you think you know about wealth starts to fall apart. Now, quick question. Be honest in the comments. Before I explained that, who did you think was richer, Dave or Sarah? I bet most of you said Dave, right? Because on paper, he has a higher net worth, therefore theoretically richer. That is exactly the trap. Now listen, this next bit sounds simple, but it's the thing that separates people who retire at 55 from the people who work until they drop. See, there are only really two types of assets in the world. Non-productive assets, like Dave's house, they look great, but they cost you every single month. Then there is productive assets, things that actually earn you or generate you money that you didn't have. Think of them like little employees that work 24/7 and never ask for a pay rise. Now, most people spend their whole lives piling up non-productive assets and then are wondering why they never feel financially free. It's like filling your garden with ornamental fountains and then complaining that you've got no water to drink. But once you understand this difference and how it works together with the rich ratio, the number that actually tells you if you're wealthy, is going to hit you like a freight train. But we're not quite there yet. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because someone watching this is going, okay, but what about property? I've got a buy to let. That's a productive asset, right? Now, I get it. We love property in this country. It's practically a national religion. Don't know why, but it is. It's almost like your uncle at Christmas going, oh, you can't go wrong with bricks and mortar. Da, da, da. We've all heard it a million times before. But here is what nobody tells you. Being a landlord is a part-time job disguised as an investment. I had this client once, lovely bloke. He had 3 buy-to-let flats and he was convinced that he was building an empire. When I asked him to actually track his time for the month with what he was doing, between dealing with a tenant who wouldn't pay rent, a boiler that exploded at midnight on Tuesday, it's always a Tuesday, and finding new tenants for an empty flat, it never stopped. Throw in the absolute minefield of UK tax rules, and he had been working for 15 hours a week on these properties. And when we actually ran the numbers, management fees, repairs, months with no tenants, paying rent, the government changing the rules on what landlords can actually claim back, the actual return was pretty pitiful. After all costs, he was netting like 3 or 4%, which is roughly what any conservative investment into a broad index fund will easily give you for 0 hours work. And I showed him that and he was like, I thought I was investing. And I'm sat there thinking, mate, you've basically just got yourself a second job, except this one doesn't even pay minimum wage. So I wanted to clarify that situation in regards to buy-to-let properties, because I genuinely do not believe that is an entirely passive vehicle. I think it's a productive asset. It's a cash flow generating asset, sure, but it's not something that is entirely passive. I have so many of my clients where for the last 5 years, we've been unraveling big buy-to-let portfolios because it's like, well, they're more busy doing that than they were working. So the question is, if buy-to-let isn't the answer, then what is? And to be honest with you, it's not what you'd expect. It's definitely not what your uncle would tell you. If you want a genuine, hands-off, passive income, the kind where money shows up in your account while you're on holiday, there's really only one serious option: a globally diversified investment portfolio. I know, it doesn't sound as sexy as property empire, but bear with me. You put it in things like ISAs and pensions, which basically means the government lets your money without taking their cut. And once it's in there, a good portfolio is having like a money tree that just builds and grows over time. You plant it, you water it occasionally, and it just grows and pays you. Here's something crazy. If you're investing in the stock market, a global stock market index tracker has averaged roughly 9% a year for the last 3 decades. That means if you'd have put in £10,000 back in 1995 and just left it alone, you would be sitting somewhere between £130,000 today from doing literally nothing. No managing tenants, no worrying about boilers breaking on a Tuesday. Now, there's basically 2 ways to get an income from this sort of thing. The first way is what I call the natural yield approach. You invest in companies that pay you a share of their profits in dividends and bonds that pay a regular interest. Then you just collect the cash as it lands and never touch the main pot. The second way, which is actually the way that I prefer, is a systematic withdrawal approach. Instead of chasing dividends and chasing companies that pay dividends, you invest to grow your pot as big as possible and then take out a small amount each year. Think of it of like having a little bucket that fills up with water faster than what you're scooping it out. The famous 4% rule basically says that you can take out 4% of your pot each year with a very high chance that you're not going to run out. So let me just quickly clear up why I prefer option 2. Chasing high dividends and dividends investing in general can push you into investing into companies just because they pay a dividend. It's like choosing a restaurant because they're cheap, basically. Eventually, you're going to get food poisoning. The more systematic approach means that you don't have to limit the scope of your investment universe. It means that you're still spread across the whole entire equity universe. You've got total control and it's often a much smoother ride. So do you remember that client from earlier with the big house? He's got £1.5 million locked in the walls and the roof. Sarah, the other person, it was Dave, wasn't it? It was Dave, yeah. Sarah's got less in total, but hers is doing that, the withdrawal and earning strategy, earning while she sleeps. That is the difference. So how do you know when that portfolio is actually enough? How do you know that you've made it? How do you know when you are wealthy? Well, that is where this comes in. The number that changed everything for me and my clients, the rich ratio. Now, it is embarrassingly simple. The rich ratio equals your passive income, i.e. the amount of money that you're either systematically withdrawing from your investments by the 4% rule, roughly, or via the naturally occurring dividend yield, divided by your desired lifestyle cost. Now, that is literally it. So if you did that, and the answer is 1, you are financially independent. Your assets pay you a completely passive income that covers your life. If you're above 1, I would say you're wealthy. You never have to work again. Below 1, you're still kind of chained to your desk, to be honest with you. Now, you can work out yours in literally 10 seconds. Seriously. You probably already know both of those numbers, but let's make it real. Picture yourself on a Monday morning. Your alarm goes off at 6:30 in the morning, and instead of dragging yourself out of bed, you turn over, roll over, turn it off, and go back to sleep. Because you don't have to be anywhere. You don't need to be anywhere for work ever again. That is what that number means. It's such a significant number. In my view, being rich it's not about how much your net worth is. It's about how many assets, how much money you have in assets that will pay you a truly passive income. Not buy-to-lets, not work, all that sort of stuff. What amount of money in pensions and ISA and other portfolios will generate you based on roughly 4% a year? Not really hard and fast rule, but broadly speaking, 4% a year. If that covers your lifestyle, you are rich. You never have to work again. Say you spent 15 years or years and years and years being boring with money, right? Filling ISAs, building your pension, resisting the urge to lease a new car every 3 years. And you've built a portfolio of £1.2 million. Amazing. At a 4% withdrawal rate, that gives you an income, broadly speaking, of £48,000 a year. Let's say that you've worked out that your comfortable lifestyle costs that you want are £40,000 a year. Now, 48,000 divided by 40 is 1.2. That is a rich ratio of 1.2. You are wealthy. You've got a 20% buffer. You could stop working tomorrow and be absolutely fine. And here's the bit that will blow your mind. And this is where the rich ratio becomes a genuine weapon. Now, most people will obsess over the top part of that equation, right? Earn more, invest more, get higher returns. And sure, that certainly matters. But the real power, it's in the bottom half, controlling your lifestyle cost, because that number is entirely within your control. And it doesn't sort of change, and it doesn't require a promotion or a side hustle or a lucky break. You can move that needle today. I've seen people earning £200,000 a year with a rich ratio close to 0. They've got private school fees, massive mortgage on a house that earns them nothing, holidays that cost more than most people's cars. They're running flat out, just on a very glamorous hamster wheel. Meanwhile, someone earning £60,000 who keeps their lifestyle at £30,000 and invests the rest, well, they will be financially free decades earlier. Because here's the maths that no one talks about. If you halve your required lifestyle, what you actually need to theoretically retire, you double your rich ratio instantly. You don't need to earn a single penny more. That is your secret weapon. Not a higher salary, not a lucky stock pick, just knowing what enough actually looks like for you. Now, before you get too excited and hand in your notice tomorrow because your ratio hit 1.01, I need to be really honest with you. I have watched people get this far and still mess all of this up. There are 3 things that can kill your rich ratio, and most people don't really see any of them coming. First, tax. Okay, your rich ratio looks beautiful on a spreadsheet, but HMRC wants their cut. So if you're taking money from a pension, the first 25% is tax-free, but the rest gets taxed as a salary. So of a £500,000 pot, that's £125,000 tax-free, brilliant. But on the other £375,000, HMRC is taking their slice of every penny. If you have money coming from a regular investment account, a general investment account, the taxman takes their cuts of your profits and your dividends. The only wrapper where income is completely free is your ISA. So smart wealth planning means pulling from the right pots at the right time to keep the taxman's hands out of your pocket. Second, market timing, okay? The 4% rule assumes smooth, steady returns, and markets do not work like that. If you retire and the market immediately drops 20%, like remember that bucket from earlier that we talked about? Now imagine it's got a massive crack in the bottom of it. You're scooping at the same rate, that 4% rate, but you're also draining the water itself and it's draining itself out. So you need cash buffers and a flexible plan for your withdrawals when things get bumpy. And third, now this one is sneaky and most people don't realize this. I had a client who retired in 2014. It was only a couple of years into me advising her, with a lifestyle that cost £40,000 a year at that time. Now you would assume comfortable, sorted, done, right? Now by 2024, 10 years later, that same lifestyle cost £53,000 thanks to inflation. So her rich ratio went from 1.1 to 0.85 without her spending a single penny on anything new or inflating her own lifestyle. See, regular inflation is a thief that you never see coming. If your investment growth doesn't outpace it, your rich ratio will slowly decay, dragging you down below that one mark without you even noticing. But here is the good news. Every single one of these is solved with the right plan. And now that you know the rich ratio, you know exactly what you're protecting. But here's the thing. Everything I just showed you about the rich ratio is useless unless you can get your portfolio to a point where it actually works. And there's a specific tipping point where your money starts making its own money. And that new money starts making its new money. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill, which is why you should watch this video here next, because most people never reach it because they're making one critical big mistake. I break it all down in this video right here. So give it a click and I'll see you there.